Welcome back to another installment of Game Time Decision. Today is August 27th, and we're here for a quick show on the Sox, Patriots, and possibly an interview. Joe, what are your thoughts on last night's game?
They look like they're finally going to turn it around. They go through the gauntlet. The first 9 games, you're 7-2. You take the one game from Cleveland. You do the 2-game mini sweep of the Orioles. You're looking good. And then you go to Detroit, a good team. They were struggling. Miguel Cabrera just came back from a minor injury. And you take a game, and now you're playing them, and you're up 3-1 in the 8th. And you put in Junichi Tazawa. We're going to get to him later. I have a few stats. But most Sox fans can tell that Junichi Tazawa has been sucking so much lately. And I am just John Farrell just needs to understand that you should know how to manage a bullpen. If you're a major league manager and you're a World Series winning manager, you should know how to semi-manage a bullpen. You don't have to be Tony La Russa. You don't have to be a guru. You just need to know who your relievers are. When they're available, it should be Brad Ziegler in the 8th and Kimbrel in the 9th. That's what it should be. That's our set bullpen. Maybe go to Barnes if Ziegler needs a day off. But why would you go to Tazawa? I mean, I understand you want to get him going, but why do you put him in a 3-1 game on the road in the bottom of the 8th? It's just mind-boggling. And then playing the Rays. We're up 3-2. Porcello didn't have his best stuff, but he got you 7 innings, 2 runs. Get out of it. Ziegler was ready. You put him in, and he throws the biggest meatball I've ever seen to Evan Longoria. It's maddening. And then he puts him out with Robbie Ross, a left-hander. Not that Robbie Ross is some amazing pitcher, but you have him ready against a lefty, and you put him in. And then Miller almost goes deep. It's unbelievable. John Farrell is insane.
Look, like I said last week, it seems like Farrell is always a batter too late, and we keep seeing it over and over again. And I do agree that Ziegler and Kimbrel should be the 8th and 9th inning combo, but John Farrell is just too hesitant to lock Ziegler into that 8th inning role, which is just odd to me.
Right. I mean, it's not like it's something that we haven't discussed before. I mean, we rehearsed this situation with Farrell over and over again. He's just consistently inconsistent and awful with the bullpen. Joe, let me ask you all a question. Do you think with this team going into the playoffs, let's say they make the playoffs, do you think John Farrell, you can win the World Series in spite of John Farrell?
Yes. And that is because I think baseball is a sport kind of like hockey, where if a pitcher gets hot, you can ride him. And I think that if the bats get hot, and Farrell's only problems seem to come in close games. So I think if we get off to a hot start, and if we can do what the Royals did last night, if we can put up a five spot in the first inning, I think we're pretty good. I think he's definitely an impediment, definitely. And I usually think that just like in basketball, a manager or coach's effect on the team is more for the morale, more for keeping the locker room together. But this guy is so incompetent. He is just a terrible field manager. I just don't. It's so.
Here's my response. You keep asking why does Farrell keep making these dumb decisions, and the only response I can think of is that last night Wright comes out, he gives up 5 runs in the first inning, so he puts Tazawa in because he basically thinks that the game's over and he thinks that they don't have a chance of winning. So he's just going to put a guy in who's had a really shaky month, see what he can do, try to give him a chance.
But why do you put him in the bottom of the 8th in a 3-1 game? I can understand the other day. But Wright was cruising after, obviously, a horrendous first
after the first,
inning.
He was doing
but
very
why,
well.
I
Only gave up
understand
3
that
more
argument.
hits.
I mean, I can understand if you're down 5 runs.
That's the
or
only
up 5 runs.
logical thing I can think of.
But when you're up 3-1 in the 8th against a team that's in the hunt, my God, he was so stupid.
Yep.
Pathetic.
It's tough to watch. And, I mean, I think that you can definitely win with a guy like that who just doesn't know how to manage a bullpen. I mean, you saw that Ned Yost was horrendous in the playoffs. He's not a good manager, and they won in spite of him. But, I mean, that was mainly because the Royals built bullpen so dominant, and you really can't go anywhere wrong with that bullpen. But it's the blemishes with John Farrell are just so much more visible with the inconsistent bullpen that they've had this year. I mean, Ziegler's, like you said, Joe's had his moments, but he's been a little inconsistent.
He's good, though.
He's good, but he's had some bad moments.
To move away from this bullpen talk, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but can we talk about how terrible the Red Sox are with runners in scoring position?
Oh, horrible.
Oh, my God, bases loaded.
Look, a couple stats to throw at you. Last night, they were 4 for 15 with runners in scoring position. They left 12 men on base, and they scored only 3 runs on 15 hits.
That's terrible.
Horrendous.
Well,
I saw.
that's just it's
4
gross.
for 15 isn't that bad.
With runners in scoring position?
4 for 15.
See,
Yeah, I know it's still like 300, but I'm just saying how
I
many
wish
guys they're leaving on base. Like they have all these opportunities, and they only come out of that with 3 runs.
I heard a stat earlier this morning. The first 4 hitters in the lineup: Pedroia, Xander, Ortiz, and Mookie. 13 for 19. Final 5, 2 for 21.
And that has to be the solution. It's like you get those top.
How do you get 14 hits and only score 3 runs?
Those first 4 guys get on base.
I feel like a lot of people haven't really realized how poor the back end of the lineups played over the last couple months because of the first couple of months that the offense had kind of overshadowed. I mean, Travis Shaw was hitting in the 300s in the first couple months of the season. I think he's down in the 250s
250,
now.
yeah.
Should be below that.
I mean, Jackie Bradley hitting in the 220s since his other than his omitting his 29-game hit streak. I mean, Aaron Hill is terrible.
I like Aaron Hill.
He's terrible.
He's bad, but you weren't expecting him to be good.
He's
I mean,
Certainly.
he was hitting 275 coming over here on the I know on the Brewers, albeit.
From
but
Aaron Hill, I just expect him to come in and play the field for a couple innings. I'm not expecting a guy to hit 270.
But I mean, he's had a pretty good career up to this point. He's having a pretty decent year. I mean, I expect him to hit. I think he's hitting below 200 now, and he's an all right fielder. He's not a great fielder. But I mean, he's been bad. Chris Young's just coming off the DL. Sandy Leon's gonna cool off even more.
No, he won't.
Than
He's a savage.
he's gonna cool off even more. So I mean that back end of the lineup. We all talk about how great the Red Sox bats are. I mean, they're a little inconsistent at times, but if the back end of that lineup's gonna stay cool, then they're in trouble.
Yeah, like you said, people aren't realizing it because first impressions are big in Boston. If you look at David Price, who I've argued off air that he's actually not having as bad of a season as people are saying, and even Rick Porcello, you take last season, I mean, he was terrible. His ERA was in the upper 4s. But once he came off the DL last August, he's been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball, and people are just starting to realize that now because he's been incredibly good.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that's the problem. Like, when you point to the Red Sox, you see, wow, this team has a lot of depth. Because Shaw's numbers as a whole, even though he's been literally a black hole in the lineup because he's been so bad, but his numbers overall, he's batting 250 with 14 home runs. But it's the inconsistency with those guys. You know, Jackie Bradley Jr. only had 1 month batting above 300.
Yeah, the month of May.
So it's so maddening.
And a guy like Travis Shaw, I mean, if I told you before the year started that he would be hitting 250 to this point with 14 home runs, is that
14 home
14
runs.
home runs? I mean, you'd probably consider accepting that, but from his hot start in the first couple of months to now, you'd be disgusted. And I think that's kind of what this Red Sox team, that kind of embodies what this Red Sox team is. Going into the season, you're just kind of hoping they'd keep it close coming into September and to the pennant race and whatnot. And at this point, now everyone's expecting a division title, and I just think that if they collapse, it's going to be an ugly scene.
I think one guy we haven't touched on is Xander. How awful has he looked at the plate? He's been a little bit better. Got a few hits yesterday.
How many? What, oh, he didn't go 4 for 4.
No,
last night.
Pedroia went 4 for 4 and Mookie went 5 for 5. But Xander, he's been so bad. And just watching him, even some of the hits he's getting, those are balls right down the middle that he should be driving for doubles, and he's only getting singles. And like you see pitches that he's popping back, those should be doubles or even homers. And he's been extremely frustrating to watch. The only guys I have faith in that lineup are Ortiz, Pedroia, and Mookie. Other than that, I have no faith whatsoever.
Some of these guys, though, that are ice cold, like Jackie Bradley and Xander Bogaerts, I don't understand why Farrell doesn't give him a day off once in a while. Don't you? I feel like
Who's
just
the alternative?
He rolls them out there. Yeah, but you give them a day off or two in exchange for maybe setting them up to get off a slump.
Well, you can
if you just keep rolling out
Young in
Xander
center.
Bogaerts there every night while
You
he's
can put Young
slumping.
in center, but who's your shortstop? Marco Hernandez?
I mean, it's just for a game or two. I'm not
You
talking
can-
for
but
a
if you
couple
look at it-
weeks.
There's
Holton
there's a
short.
weird stat. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but remember when Xander requested that day off
Yes.
a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Since then, he's been noticeably worse than he was before that day off. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying is that give him a day off, let him rest, and then maybe he'll come back hot again. He's slumping. But, again, there's no alternative to playing Xander Bogaerts,
Yeah.
and it didn't really work out last time.
Well,
Who's your alternative?
You could put I'm not as a long-term solution, but I think for a game, you could get away with putting Brock Holton
Yeah,
short.
absolutely. It's
And
just
in
for a
center,
game or two.
and in
It's
center
not-
against a lefty, Chris Young can play a game, or even if you don't have faith in him, you can put slide Mookie over to center
It's
for a
just
game
for
and
a
put
game, yeah.
and put Young and
I
right.
mean, every game's important at this point of the season. We're in
Absolutely.
such a tight race.
Absolutely,
I know,
I
but
agree.
you're telling me Chris Young
But-
against a lefty can't hit better than Jackie Bradley
But the
Jr.
lo-
is?
Chris Young's so overrated against lefties. He had one good year against lefties last season. Before that, he was like a 240 hitter against lefties.
But
so
the
but he's
long
still serviceable for a game.
the long-term bat of Xander Bogaerts and Jackie Bradley is more important,
Than
I
one
think,
night.
than
Yeah.
one or
I
two
don't
games.
see the long-term bat of,
one
and
day
I just
off.
did air quotes, of Jackie Bradley Jr. 2 good months in his career. May of this year and August of last year. Other than that, he's a 220 hitter. He's Kevin Kiermaier, Kevin Pillar. Great defensively. He might have more pop than them, but that's pretty much what you're going to get offensively. You might get
But I
15
don't
homers.
expect him to be a 220 hitter the rest of his career. I think he's at least a 250, 260 hitter, and he's been
You weren't
much
saying that at
worse
the
than
beginning
that.
of the year. At the
No,
beginning of the year, you
No,
wouldn't
at
have
the
said that.
beginning of the year, we all said we'd like to see Jackie Bradley be a 250 hitter because his glove makes up for it. And now we're starting to kind of we saw how when he's hot, like how high his ceiling can be, and now we're seeing how low that his valleys can go. And people are kind of they don't really know how to gauge Jackie Bradley. But again, if he can hit 250 with that glove, I'm happy with it.
I don't think he can hit 250.
All right, Joe, do you got anything else to touch upon with the Red Sox?
It's maddening because they have so much talent. Just look up and down the lineup. Their pitching has been good. I've hated Pomeranz, but I'll give it up to him. He's pitched well. 11 Ks in 6 innings. He's pitched well. Even 51 pitches through 5 innings in that rain-shortened game against Baltimore. I got to give it up to him. He's been pitching well. Price has turned it around. Porcello, model of consistency. Wright gave up 5 runs in the first inning, and he just came back. I mean, other than that Henry Owens started debacle in Detroit, the rotation's been great. I was looking at a stat. I'm not sure how it exactly is right now, but because this is a few days ago. But the Royals their overall ERA just for this month is like 2.3. They've been unreal.
They're on fire.
16
They're
out of 19.
definitely a scary team in the AL that you would not want to run into in
You
a
wanna
one-game
keep them
playoff.
out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're
So-
starting pitching. Who's their ace? Who's the Royals' ace that you fear? Because I think that
I think statistically, Danny Duffy has been
Yeah,
their best.
Danny
But I
Duffy's
mean,
been
if
very
if
good.
anybody's afraid of Danny
But
Duffy,
I
then-
mean, it's not the starting pitching that you're afraid of,
That's-
Joe. It's the bullpen.
I know.
They just need a guy to get them 5 innings and 5 solid innings, and then they're in their bullpen, and they're almost impossible to beat in a close game.
That's true, but they are a team that you can front run on. If you can score early.
Yeah, you have to come out early, exactly, which the Red Sox are actually pretty good at.
They are.
Most nights. So, okay.
Shifting gears,
I
yeah.
think it's time to shift gears. Yep. Move on to the Patriots. So last night, the dress rehearsal game, as it's known as in the NFL preseason, the 3rd week, Patriots Panthers. Some good, some bad. The great actually was the defense. The defense looked tremendous. We touched upon the defense.
I think Cam Newton made the defense look tremendous because he is so overrated.
Let's not get into that again.
Yeah,
He's so overrated.
But your Cam Newton opinion is preposterous. But the defense looked tremendous. 3 interceptions. The Rutgers boys, Harmon, Logan Ryan, and
McCourty?
Devin McCourty, the Rutgers boys, all getting interceptions. But we touched upon the defense last week. I think they're in for a big year, top 5 type year. But the main headline coming out of last night was Tom Brady actually playing in the game. I think that's definitely a move on his part to push to play. And the last time that Tom Brady did not play in the preseason was 2009, and that was the year he tore his ACL in the first game against the Chiefs. So I think that may have played a factor in the back of his mind that, hey, he wants to get out there. I mean, it's also because he's a huge competitor, and that he wants to see some action before the season starts.
Right.
But he looked pretty fresh out there. He looked good. Hooked up with Chris Hogan on a nice touchdown. Dropped it right in the bucket.
That kind of reminded me of the Brandon LaFell touchdown against the Ravens.
Ravens, yeah,
that
absolutely.
was a beautiful pass.
It was on the opposite side of the field though. But what would you get? Would you guys have played Tom Brady last night in that preseason game or no?
Yes, I would have. Because no matter what, as great as he is, he's going to be away from the team for a month. He needs a little bit of reps out there with the players, and even just for his mental sanity and his just to keep him calm and not make him lose his mind. Give him a few series out there. It can't hurt. I mean, if he had gotten hurt. But that could happen anytime you step on the field.
Yeah.
So no matter what, he could get hurt week 1, God forbid. I'm knocking on wood right now. But
Yeah. I mean, I kind of would have frowned upon it against the Panthers, but ultimately I would have left it up to him to decide. If he wanted to play, I would have let him get out there for a few snaps. If he didn't, then I would have held him on the bench.
How much did he play last night? Was it a quarter?
He played, I think it was
second quarter.
4 or 5
drives?
series, yeah. Mark, what do you think? Would you have played
I
Tom
wouldn't
Brady?
have played him. I think Garoppolo needs all the work he can get at this point. I mean, he's got 4 big games coming up to start the season, and I mean he doesn't have much NFL experience. So I think all this time is valuable to him. And he did start the game. Brady came on a relief,
Right.
but I think just Garoppolo needs the time.
Yep.
I completely agree. I would have played if Tom Brady came up to me and I'm Bill Belichick and he says, "Hey, I really want to play tonight."
Right.
I think he's deserved that right to get in there a little bit. But if he doesn't come and approach me, there's no way I play him. I don't risk injury. I know, Joe, that you said that you risk injury anytime you step on the field, but in a meaningless preseason game, it's not worth it. And Jimmy Garoppolo more than needs the reps, which swings us into his performance last night, which was subpar.
Yeah.
He did not look too good. I noticed that he's very good scrambling and getting out of the pocket when there's pressure, and he's good at eluding guys. There was a couple times where he thought he was going down for a sack, and he'd get out of it. But he's not good at really making a play yet, and I don't really expect him to be this great playmaker in only his 3rd year in the league and not even played an actual NFL or a meaningful NFL snap yet. But he really doesn't know what to do once he's in space and has time to make a play. So, I mean, I just expect him to be a game manager. They'll run plays. I think we addressed this in the first episode. They'll run plays for him where it's easy to make completions, quick throws, stuff like that.
Yeah.
With a shaky offensive line.
What other offensive adjustments would you expect to see for his starting 4 weeks?
Well, they'll probably run the ball a little bit more than they would with a Tom Brady, especially LeGarrette Blount's looked tremendous. Did you see him hurdle that guy last night?
Still gonna get
Mark,
cut.
you didn't see him hurdle? Oh my God.
He's still gonna get cut.
Awful.
He's awful.
Terrible.
He's awful.
No,
I don't care what he does against
Mark,
third string.
if you guys have watched him in the preseason,
I watched him last year.
He's looked very good in this preseason.
Anybody listening right now, drop your thoughts on LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah,
LeGarrette
because
Blount,
awful.
I would love to see him play in a meaningful game against a defense who's trying and see
no,
what he does.
No, he looked very good last night.
How long has he been with the Patriots? 2 years.
I'm
We've
not.
seen
I'm
it.
not.
More than that.
Not
Listen, 3 or
good.
4.
He's not good.
I'm not expecting 1,000. I'm not expecting 1,000, 1,200
I'm
yards.
not expecting 800
I-
yards, 700. He's awful.
He's looked very good in this preseason.
No.
He hasn't looked this good in a couple years.
Oh,
What?
LeGarrette Blount is the guy who, when you're playing in Foxborough in 20 degrees against a terrible team who's packed in at the end of the year, yeah, he can rush for 150 yards, and he'll rumble and tumble, and once he gets going, no defensive back's going to tackle him. But you get him against a tough defensive line in a meaningful game. He can't even get you that 2 yards. He's
Listen.
terrible. He's
Listen.
slow. He's like David Ortiz.
Listen, I was a big LeGarrette Blount hater coming into this year. I didn't understand why they re-signed him, but he's still not a good running back, but I think he's now come to the level of serviceable. I think he's a serviceable running back.
Yeah, so he's gotten better in 2 months.
Who, if he looks better, he looks more fresh.
Who would you rather have, LeGarrette Blount or Arian Foster? He was picked up.
Arian Foster.
Arian
Why
100%.
wouldn't we pick him up? It was very low risk, cheap money.
It makes no sense, but I mean, I trust Bill Belichick, so I'm not gonna
Bill
go against
Belichick
it.
is I'm going to say this, and I don't know if I'm going to get some flack for it. He is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. As a personnel guy, he's good, but he's a little bit overrated. People tend to combine Bill Belichick, the coach, and Bill Belichick, the GM. If I'm grading them on a scale of like 100, like a test, he's 100 as a coach. It's like a 88, 89 as a GM. One of the better guys in the league, but he's not as good a GM as he is a coach. And he can be wrong. He has been wrong as a GM. It's fact.
But what GM has not been wrong before?
He's gotten a lot right. If you look at guys he brings in that he knows has a little bit left.
If you're talking a game plan in Bill we trust, absolutely. Personnel-wise, for the most part.
I'm talking about his personnel right now. The guys he brings in, he's able to find a role for them. Jabal Sheard. I'm curious to see what he does with Mingo.
It's less about the players he brings in and how talented they are. It's what he does as a coach to make them better.
I understand that, but you have to understand that he looks at his moves from a GM perspective and a coach perspective. Obviously,
Joe, I completely disagree with you.
Oh.
For every one example of a guy who flamed out, didn't work out here, you can find 5, 6, 7 guys who
Ocho Cinco. They gave him a lot of
were
money.
way
Joey
over
Galloway, a lot of money.
expectation.
Fred Taylor, Albert Hainsworth. They've dished out contracts to a lot of guys.
Well, I'm not going to go down the list. There's so many guys every
Sean
single
Springs,
year that they
Lee
bring
Bodden.
in.
They gave
I
him
mean,
a lot of money
a guy,
to those
just to
guys.
pick out a guy like Patrick Chung, he was
A second-round pick.
But he was terrible. He was
With
terrible his
Philadelphia.
first couple years here, and then on Philadelphia, and he comes in on cheap money, and he looks like close to a Pro Bowl safety.
Dion Lewis is another one.
People
thought he was done. Comes to New England.
There's no
There's
such thing
a
as
lot-
there's
there's
no
a
such
lot
thing
more
as a
misses
perfect
than you
GM.
There's numerous examples
Yeah, there's a lot
every
more
year
misses,
of guys
but
that
I
he just.
agree with Tyler on this one.
I
Of
think
guys
there
that he
could be as
brings
many
in.
misses.
I mean, Malcolm Butler is a bum. He's an undrafted rookie who went to a Division II college, and he's not noticed. He's not like a tremendous talent, and he comes in and in only 2 years he's a Pro Bowl cornerback. There's so many examples for every guy who hasn't
have
worked
flamed
out.
especially
Yeah,
in the
there's-
second.
it goes
every
both ways.
GM brings in a guy who flames out, Joe.
If my GM has a 50-50 ratio with guys that flame out and guys that work out, I mean that's pretty good.
It's
to me.
That's not that
acceptable.
bad, yeah.
It's definitely acceptable.
Exactly, it's very good. I never said he was bad. I gave him an A minus, but he's not an A plus like he is as a coach, and he can be wrong. And
Do
he
you
has
think
been
there's
wrong.
a better general manager in the NFL than him?
Scott Pioli?
Was he with the Chiefs?
Yeah,
Who
he
was
was,
he
I
with?
think he's with the Chiefs.
The
He was-
Chiefs?
And I'd
he
say
was our former
Belichick's
GM.
better.
He was our former GM.
I don't know. I disagree with you on
I
that.
like Pioli. He's a talent.
But speaking of Bill Belichick moves, he did trade for a bust linebacker, Barkevius Mingo. Basically, like you said,
the
Joe,
Jonathan Cooper of defensive.
I
linemen.
disagree.
he was the 5th pick in
Sixth.
2000.
Sixth.
Sixth pick in 2013.
He was the 6th. I think that Cooper was the 7th.
No, Cooper was the 5th or 4th. He was top
Cooper
5
was
pick.
7. Cooper was 7.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was?
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
I like Mingo.
But I wouldn't, Joe. You can't say you wouldn't be surprised if he came in and all of a sudden became someone who was a contributor to the
No,
team.
not because he's anything special. It's because Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia know what to do with him. And I think you could say that about anyone. And of course, it's a low risk. It's a 5th-round pick, which
Yeah.
Bill Belichick values a lot.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's worth it to take a flyer on a guy who has a lot of raw natural talent. But, I mean, the Browns ruin everyone. No offense, Chris.
None taken.
They ruin everyone.
But I thought that was coming on the heels of a guy like Jonathan Freeney maybe getting cut, but I guess that's a big Bill Belichick guy who just got an extension today or yesterday. Two-year
Today, I
contract
think
extension.
You know what
today.
kind of scares me, though? What would scare me the most is if Mingo really does work out and we think that he's a viable replacement for a guy like a Collins or a Hightower. That's
No, I think if anybody, he'd replace Sheard, who's a free agent after this year, which
Yeah.
I
Or
could
Ninkovich.
very much
He's
see.
more of a pass rushing
what about
linebacker.
like a Ninkovich? Could he
Yeah.
replace
Yeah,
Ninkovich?
if he has
Yeah.
a good season, I think they let Ninkovich go and
Absolutely.
they keep Mingo because I think he
don't-
could have a Jabal Sheard-like season.
I don't think there's any way Rob Ninkovich is on the team after this year.
But he's such a-
he's so old.
Such
and
a big.
he's-
He's
not
such a
that
Bill
old.
Belichick.
He's
like
such a Patriot.
32, I think.
He's a Patriot.
he wasn't that good last year, to be honest.
He's just the most consistent defensive end in the NFL. He's like an 8-sack-a-year guy. He's gonna get pressure for you.
And he's
but
a pro.
He definitely showed regression.
He's a
last year.
Patriot.
He's definitely. I could see him in a couple years retiring. So. Bringing me in to my next topic. the offensive line. The offensive line took a big hit. There's been some injuries, namely Sebastian Vollmer. He went on the IR, so I guess there's 2 IRs this year. One
Short term? Right.
One short term for 6 weeks. One's long term for the year. He's on the short term, so he's eligible to come back after week 6. That puts in place maybe the worst football player in the NFL, Marcus Cannon, starting at right tackle, who was signed to an extension a couple years ago. I don't understand why Bill Belichick likes this guy. He's horrendous. He literally is a threat to Tom Brady and whatever running back's in there safety.
I think
he's horrendous. I don't understand why a guy like Adrian Waddle or maybe plug in a guy like Thuney.
Well, Dooney's our right guard, I think.
I know, but put in another guy at guard and put him over at tackle because I think he played a couple different positions at NC State. But I mean, Joe, I know you feel the same way. He is literally one of the worst football players I have ever watched play.
You're better off playing with 10 guys on offense.
I mean,
save the money.
Just wheel a dummy out onto the field.
I just don't understand why Bill Belichick likes this guy. And
are you questioning Bill Belichick's judgment? And Bill we trust?
This is the one special. There is no one guy on the Patriots that sticks out in my mind as being just
terrible,
horrendously awful as Marcus Cannon that I can ever think of.
Ever? Ocho Cinco? Lee Bodden, Sean Springs.
I'd take him over Marcus.
But Ocho Cinco didn't play because he wasn't
Ocho
good.
Cinco was getting $5-6 million a year. He's getting more money than Cannon.
But he didn't play. He didn't play. Bill Belichick signed him to an extension. Bill Belichick likes Marcus Cannon. Bill Belichick, the coach, did not like Ocho Cinco.
Because Ocho Cinco couldn't understand the playbook.
But Bill Belichick, the GM, did because he traded for him. Bill Belichick, the coach and GM, likes Marcus Cannon, and I don't understand why. And he's horrendous. And
a mystery.
Maybe we should bring Mankins out of retirement.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing problems with the offensive line happening early, but the GOAT O-line coach, Dante Scarnecchia, he'll figure something out.
All right, so Bill, we know you're listening, so if you'd like to call us in this Tuesday and explain to us what your thoughts are on Tyler's proposition there and why you're keeping this lineman. So shifting gears a little bit to the NBA, Joe, he came up to me and asked me if he could rant on a certain player. Joe?
So after the Olympics, the United States won. Whoop-de-frickin-do. It means nothing. I've read stuff. Is Carmelo Anthony one of the greatest American basketball players ever? I just want to say, you fraud, Carmelo Anthony. If you're listening, you are no good.
Probably is.
You are terrible. You don't have a winning bone in your body. Oh, my God. I think he could have gone to the Rockets, who at the time with Harden and Howard, they could have got Bosch too. And you say no to play in New York because you want to be with Lala. I just hate Carmelo Anthony. I think he's the biggest loser in the league. I just want to say how meaningless Olympic wins are in basketball. You're playing against 5'10" guys from Serbia. You're playing against Serbia. Who's from Serbia?
So anyone from Serbia listening, just
was there a single
don't take
NBA basketball player from Serbia?
Must have been, if they made it to the gold medal game.
I can't think of a Serbian guy. I think Darko Milicic is from Serbia. If Darko Milicic is on the Serbian national team, drafted ahead of Carmelo Anthony, that was Carmelo's revenge against Serbia because Darko got picked ahead of him. It's Melo's revenge against the country of Serbia because you suck, Melo. I hate you. I honestly, last year, I was thinking, you know what? I wouldn't mind if we traded for Melo. At least he's a scorer. He's an elite scorer. I don't want him. I don't care if Melo's making $2 million a year and we could get him for Ben Bentel or Abdel Nader. I wouldn't want him on my team for nothing. I think that he's just, oh my God. Him and Rajon Rondo are my 2 least favorite players in the league. Oh my God, so selfish, so cocky. To even put him in a class of some of the greatest players of all time, it's terrible. It's terrible. U.S. men's basketball, DeAndre Jordan, another one, saying you'd rather win an Olympic medal than the NBA championship. Yeah, because who's the best player you're going up against? Pau Gasol, a 37-year-old Pau Gasol is the best non-U.S. guy in Olympic basketball. Really? You pathetic sack.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think basketball should be an Olympic sport at this point. It's just not a big worldly influenced game anymore.
It kind of, honestly, if I would reform it to do what hockey did back in the 80s when you just have guys in college. Why would you have pros out there?
The
All
US,
the elite players find their way to the NBA.
US.
Well, hockey still has pros, but
At least the
I should go back
US.
to how it was.
yeah.
At least the US should not be allowed to play professional athletes. It's just it's not even. I didn't
I
watch a
see
single
that argument
game.
to be fair, but the whole point of the Olympics is send your country's best and go win a gold medal. And that's what the
All right,
U.S. are
then,
doing.
Then everyone
there should
only
be
send their
no
amateurs
pride in it.
because I just
Yeah.
I don't see that. There's no reason to even watch any Olympic basketball.
No.
I don't know why, like NBA
Well, to be-
players want to play. I don't know why their teams allow them to play. 'Cause
It's like
look at
Gino
Paul
Auriemma
George. He
pumping
almost
his
ruined
chest
his
after
knee.
10 women's college basketball. Great. They're like, you recruit every single one. You kick everyone's asses. Great.
Yep.
Well, at the same time,
Congrats, you fraud.
if you look at another sport, this may seem a little far fetched. Like, for example, ping pong has been taken by China for the past 25 Olympics or something like that. But that doesn't mean you should cut the sport out. You shouldn't let China participate, or you should say that they can't bring pros in. I mean, Tyler's right or Mark was right. I'm sorry, that the Olympics you're meant to send the best of your country to compete, and that's what the United States does. So.
and
yeah, but you shouldn't brag about it like you did this miraculous feat.
Well,
you
that's-
should
yeah.
win.
But the guys who are bragging are the guys who have no NBA success
Exactly.
whatsoever.
Right.
The only reason DeAndre Jordan and Carmelo Anthony say stuff like that is because they
They're
know
losers.
that they haven't won an NBA title and they're probably never going to win one. So
They're
they
happy, yeah.
They might as well acknowledge the accolades that they got in the Olympics because they know that they're not going to have any NBA success.
I volunteer at a daycare for some of my community service, and I ball up on these 8-year-olds on a 7-foot hoop. And if I win that Olympics at the daycare, should I be going, yes, I'd rather do that than win a state
Right,
championship
but it's
for my
different
high
because
school.
that's an age difference compared to just a skill difference.
Yeah.
between
Yeah,
the
you're
US
playing
and
against
their
5'10"
opponents.
Serbia. I mean, if you
Serbia's basically a team of 8.
at least if you played Spain, they have some recognizable players.
I couldn't.
It's
I
pathetic.
can't provide examples, but I know there's sports out there where there's a dominant country that it seems like there always will be, and does that make the medal for that specific sport less valuable in terms of bragging rights? Yes, but should you judge the sport or the people who play being happy because they won? No, you shouldn't.
No, but you shouldn't act like it's the greatest accomplishment ever and say you'd rather win that than an NBA championship. If I was a Knicks fan, if Isaiah Thomas said that, how angry
But-
would you be?
Joe,
I would be
would
disgusted.
you rather win a Olympic medal than not win an Olympic medal for basketball yourself?
Yes, say I'm proud of this, I'm proud of
Yeah.
the team, but to go that far,
Don't compare it to an NBA
Right.
title.
you know
Right,
what?
but all the people who have actually won an NBA title aren't doing it.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
That's the
LeBron
difference.
James doesn't do that. Kobe certainly didn't do it. Jordan didn't do it. So you're just a loser, Carmelo Anthony, and I hope someone just tweets this at him. Some kid
All right.
from Boston rants about how much
Yeah,
Melo is a
he-
fraud.
he's probably
won't-
listening
he won't
already
listen.
anyways. So.
Definitely.
So you heard that, Mello.
Go away, Mello.
Got you.
Okay, Chris.
All right, so up next, we're going to continue our segment from last time, the winner and loser. We'll start out with the loser. Spin, what do you got?
Loser, not just this week, but for the whole month of August, is the terrible Junichi Tazawa.
Surprise, surprise.
Few stats. So his overall ERA in the month of August is 12.86. Farrell stupidly, unconscionably put him in a 3-1 game in Detroit, gave up 3 runs, didn't record an out. That's how bad he is. In his past 6 outings, 5 innings, 10 runs.
Horrendous.
He is pathetic. I don't know if you send him down to the minors to get his head straight, or if you just, you trot him out there yesterday in a game that seemed kind of over, even though 5 runs isn't that much. It was actually
That
3
that was
or
just
4
my
runs.
possible solution to why Farrell sent him out there, because he thought the game was over.
The Red
It
Sox, they
definitely
need
shouldn't be.
bullpen help to compete in the playoffs, and Farrell's trying to get Tazawa back on track. So, you put him in a meaningful game. I don't agree with it, but I think the reasoning behind it is you want to show him that you have some confidence
Right.
in him. And, he just sucks, so I'd lose all my confidence
Could
in him.
Papelbon do any worse?
Yes.
He-
Jonathan
he could
Papelbon
do
is the worst player to
He
ever
could
have in
do-
your clubhouse.
He could do worse. You're telling me?
But Joe, the thing is with Jonathan Papelbon, he'll be bad on the field and off the field.
Yes.
What's so bad about him on the field? At least he has stones.
We don't know about
He's like
Tazawa off the
4.7 ERA this year. That sounds pretty bad.
If you look at his numbers from before he was
Before
cut.
his final year.
No, before his final 4 outings, he was their closer. He had 19 saves. He was pitching pretty effectively.
He's awful.
I don't know.
He's
That
not
I don't
awful.
want him
He's
anywhere near this.
serviceable.
Just like Pablo Sandoval, keep him far away from the clubhouse as possible.
Why? What has Papelbon done that's terrible in the clubhouse?
So selfish.
What do you mean?
He only cares
But you
about
need to
himself.
be selfish. As a reliever, it's good to be selfish.
I don't know why everybody from the Red Sox Nation wants Papelbon back. After he left here, he was like, he went to Philadelphia. He's like, I'm so happy that the fans in Philadelphia know what they're talking about. I'm so happy these guys know baseball. He just took a complete shot at you.
I agree
And then
with
when
Mark.
he's with the Red Sox, he gets asked. This was 3 years before he went to free agency. He was in Yankee Stadium. They asked him, would you consider signing with the Yankees? He laughed at it at first. And he's like, you know what? I probably could see myself as a Yankee if they shell out the most money. He's selfish. I don't want him. He doesn't
But
care
it's
about
good,
the team.
It's good to be selfish as a reliever. I think that's very important.
I think the level of play in the bullpen would have to stoop to such a level. I mean, I know the bullpen's mediocre as it is. I think it would have to
Mediocre?
get even
Terrible.
worse. I think it would have to get even worse for them to
It's
sign
not
him.
worth it.
Tyler,
It's not worth it at all.
What is your opinion on how big of a factor off-field performances and attitude and thing like that? What do you think?
I think it's bigger in a sport like baseball, where a team like the Red Sox, where I think the clubhouse this year has been very positive, and that's kind of had an effect on the overall team, especially the younger guys playing. A guy like Andrew Benintendi maybe is more welcomed into the picture coming up. Whereas opposed to last year, you get guys like Pablo Sandoval with a bad attitude, Hanley Ramirez with a bad attitude, and it showed on the field. So I think, when you have a ton of talent and there's bad attitude off the field, it may not translate as much. But with a team like the Red Sox with the bullpen struggling, I think that it could definitely. If they had a bunch of studs in the bullpen and they had someone brought in who was bad off the field, I don't think it would really matter. But I think that a guy like Jonathan Papelbon would definitely be a negative influence, and that could definitely affect stuff on the field.
Now, I generally kind of agree with that, but I think when you look at a clubhouse, each team has a leader or a few. The Red Sox, 2016 Red Sox, the clear leaders we all acknowledge are David Ortiz, Dustin Pedroia, and those are that's the veteran presence. And I think when your best players are guys like Papelbon, then you have a problem. But if he's your guy who you pick up for $100,000 at the end of the year, you can cut him at any time. You won't owe him anything. And he knows some of the guys in there. They're going to keep him in line. And if he doesn't shut up, you'll just be released and buy into baseball irrelevance. So I don't think that's a big deal. I think when you have a guy like Sandoval who was brought in to be one of our better players and to be a veteran leader, that's where the difference comes in. And if Papelbon was the leader of the bullpen, he's not. Craig Kimbrell's the leader, and Brad Ziegler's more of a presence in the bullpen. I'm not going to deny it.
Okay.
So I think that's where it lies. When you're the 25th guy on the team who's there just to eat innings in the end, I don't think that's as many difference. I don't think that's a huge difference.
All right.
Our big loser.
That was the loser,
That
yep.
was the loser.
So now our winner. Tyler, what do you got for the winner?
Right. That was the winner. The loser. Our big winner, I'd say UFC. Conor McGregor specifically, but UFC overall took a big win.
Yeah, they did.
This past weekend, was it?
Right.
Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, the second fight they've had, the rematch. Tremendous fight. Had a lot of buzz on social media.
Mm-hmm. Hype, baby.
Definitely a lot of hype going into it, and it lived up to all expectations.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor won on a decision after 5 rounds. Both guys were gassed, and I just think going forward, UFC's gonna. I think it'll definitely. It may have already surpassed boxing.
Absolutely.
As the premier fighting sport in America, in the world. And that I think it could definitely, not compete to be a major sport in the U.S., but it's definitely going to gain a lot more eyes for Diaz-McGregor Part 3 and other fights going forward. So, UFC, Dana White's doing a great job over there, Massachusetts guy. But great for the UFC, very entertaining, and should be headed to the sky.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thanks for tuning in to Game Time Decision this week. See you next time.